Hello folks, and welcome back to Candace Boxing Channel. I had thought that I was done speaking about Don Charles. I have made videos about Don Charles because I found some of the things that he has said to be thoroughly annoying and disrespectful. In particular, I made a video about Don Charles when he accused Olexander Usyk of not being a real Christian and of cheating over the so-called low blow controversy that occurred in the Usyk-Dubois first fight. I then made another video where I called out Don Charles for making equally disrespectful comments about Joseph Parker and Joseph Parker's trainer, Andy Lee, after Dubois pulled out of the proposed Joe Parker fight for reasons that were never fully disclosed and which, in my mind, remain shrouded in secrecy, quite frankly. But I thought I was done with it, and I didn't want to watch any more of Don Charles speaking. And if I didn't have a boxing channel, I wouldn't. I would just completely ignore them. But today, not only have I seen a Don Charles interview given to Box Nation, but I have seen something that is even more offensive. I'm trying to think of when I last felt so embarrassed watching something to do with boxing. And that is Don Charles's offspring, who does not, for reasons that are unknown to me, share Charles's last name, a fellow by the name of George Fox, or let's say George the Future Fox. He was actually a professional boxer from 2018 to 2021. A somewhat less than stellar career, 4 wins, 1 loss. Short career. Clearly the future was not overly bright. Anyhow, let's start with this Fox fellow, about whom I have nothing good to say. So if you're a fan of George the Future Fox, now is the time to turn off. George the Future Fox stood pointing his finger and being quite belligerent towards Olexander Usyk, who was sitting down. He accused Usyk of lying and cheating and said that he knew that when Usyk fought Dubois, Usyk was hurt to the body. He pointed out that if he'd been hit in the gonads, he would have had a certain body reaction, hit somewhere else, another body reaction, shaking. Clearly the man is an expert on human anatomy and body language. Well, anyhow, and this is where I'm going to probably go off on one. Imagine, if you will, any heavyweight boxer, or any boxer period, confronted by some clown in a tracksuit who is a bouncer at Weatherspoons, a former boxer. Imagine what the reaction would have been. Imagine, if you will, that it was Derek Chisora sitting down, Jai Opataya, Ryan Garcia, anybody you like, Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, anybody with the possible exception of a really nice guy like Joe Joyce or possibly Joe Parker. Any fighter you can imagine, when confronted with this moron, bloviating and pointing the finger and accusing you of lying and cheating, the fighter would have gotten up and either walked away or gone for him. And, you know, honestly, with a record of 4-1, I'm not seeing any outcome other than the floor being wiped. Even, you know, somebody like Big Johnny Fisher would have flattened him. But no, Usyk, an absolute gentleman to his core, gets up and says, no, that's your opinion. To which this Fox fellow says it's not his opinion. It's what he knows, you know, coating himself in that, you know, self-righteousness, that it's not opinion, it's his knowledge. Because, wait for this, he's been watching boxing for 20 years. Well, who knew that watching boxing for 20 years would give you such great insight that you could stand in front of the heavyweight champion of the world who's been boxing for longer than that, actually like in the ring and doing it, and telling that boxer that because you've been watching it on the telly, you know that he was hurt. You know. The arrogance, the conceit, this plain dumb fuckery is beyond any imagination. I was ashamed to be watching this thinking, oh my God, like if I was a fan of Dubois, which I'm not, I would be ashamed that this guy was sort of representing my guy, my team, right? But what does Usyk do? Usyk says no. And Usyk pulls up his shirt a little bit. I'm not going to pull up mine because I'm fat. But he pulls up his shirt and he points on his body where he was hurt. The idiot Fox does not seem swayed by this. Usyk tries to show him some photographs. Oh, I've seen those before. Waves off Usyk like Usyk is a panhandler. Usyk asks one question. How many professional fights have you had? Well, the idiot Fox then does, and eventually concedes that it's 5. The trainer of Usyk stands in front of this man-child and tries to show him some things, where punches would land. Fox is all Weatherspoon's bouncer-ish, says, well, I've perceived that as a threat. He's twice the size of Usyk's trainer, who was just trying to demonstrate something. Well, for reasons that are completely beyond me, TalkSport then interview afterwards this despicable human being, in my view. And he goes on further about how he knows what happened. And also says that, he would tear Usyk's eyes out. Like, a person who's only famous because his father is a well-established boxing trainer. Shameful, embarrassing, should not have been allowed in the presence of Olexander Usyk. And again, I keep thinking about, God, if only Tyson Fury had been sitting there, what would Tyson Fury have done to this complete clown? What, for that matter, would John Fury have done to this complete clown? Or Big Johnny Fisher, Johnny Fisher's dad? Like, who is this man? It was shameful. It's on TalkSport Boxing. It's had 17,000 views. It's a whole bunch of comments, none of which are supportive of this idiot. In my view, it's driving fans away from Daniel Dubois. If I was Daniel Dubois and I was able to think for myself, I'd be livid. This guy is driving fans into Camp Usyk, surely. Well, now I know, of course, that this clown is the offspring of some description of Don Charles. I'm left with the conclusion that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Because Don Charles gave an interview to Umar at Box Nation today, where he starts off with, I'm a very honest person. Here's a newsflash. If somebody starts off with, I'm a very honest person, be prepared for dishonesty. It's like when you get into a cab and the cab driver says, I'm not racist, but be prepared for something that's most likely going to come out of his mouth that's racially prejudiced, right? It's just the way people are. Anyhow, Don Charles, says Usyk is a cheat and it will never sit right with me. He talks about how Usyk's shorts were way too high, which is laughable, and how the fix was in because when Dubois fought Usyk, it was on Ukrainian Independence Day. This is something that the idiot man-child also repeats about how, it was Usyk's homecoming. Well, actually it wasn't because he was fighting in Poland, but yeah, whatever. And it was Ukrainian Independence Day, and so they would never allow Usyk to lose off a body shot. They would call it as a low blow. Honestly, it's shameful. It's embarrassing. You know, you've got a chance to right the wrong as you see it. Train your fighter so that your fighter can be the best that he can possibly be, so that on Saturday, 19th of July, the 27-year-old Dubois can fight the 38-year-old Usyk and maybe prevail. But all this stuff is just absolute nonsense. And Usyk is comporting himself with dignity, with humility, and in a way that I'm shocked actually that Usyk is so polite about this. I can't think of another boxer who would have tolerated what I saw with this complete POS in his face. I absolutely can't imagine. I wish for one moment only that Usyk had channeled Derek Chisora and just plastered this guy all over the floor. But Usyk, total gentleman, which is why people like me really like Olexander Usyk and really, really, really hope that he beats Dubois. I personally would prefer to see him against this George Fox guy, because I think that Fox has totally crossed the line. And if the British Boxing Board of Control had anything about them, they'd fine this guy. They'd fine him for being a dick. Anyhow, that's my view. I recommend you watch this thing on TalkSport Boxing, and if you've got the stomach, watch the Don Charles interview on Box Nation. But regardless, let me know in the comments section below what you think. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing. If you are a dyed-in-the-wool Dubois fan, understand, I got nothing against Dubois as a person. I think his team around him is absolutely despicable. And quite frankly, they're losing him support, in my view. And there we are. Yes, I will see you on the next video. Wherever you are in the world, have a fabulous day. And don't forget to look up the box rec for George the Future Fox. And let's make this guy famous for all the wrong reasons. Thanks for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.